One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is how often someone who's thinking of starting a podcast makes very little effort towards identifying how their show should fit in the world of what's now 5,000 podcasts a day being made. And if their podcast is already running, why they're not considering how to improve the format. Just because you've done a couple thousand or a couple hundred interviews doesn't mean you've optimized it, made it better. Who is it for? What's it for? That's something that Seth Godin is always asking. He writes a lot about shipping creative work. It's about who's it for, what's it for, right? I've been saying a lot lately, especially because I work with a lot of business podcasts. It's great that you're having the conversation and that you recorded it and that you documented it. That doesn't mean that it's content, right? What is this conversation about? Often it's to feature the company and tell a story that's compelling so that people can understand that. I think that's great, right? But let's do an exercise here. Imagine that the movie you went to go see was a movie made by a writer and a studio that wants everyone to know that this studio is awesome and that the writer is awesome. Suddenly the movie isn't that great, is it? But we can tangentially, as a consequence of having watched something awesome, believe that the writer and the studio are awesome. And often what ends up happening with content creation is we want to position ourselves to be seen as awesome or what have you, instead of actually doing something awesome, bringing some bit of information that's awesome. Who's it for? What's it for, right? What's it for? Is it to entertain? All that matters. And if you're not entertaining and you're not doing something that's insightful or educational, what is the video for? If you're just recording to feature a company, why should somebody care about the company? What industry are they in? What industry are they in? Is this an industry that is often looking for education? Or is this an industry that's constantly moving quickly? And so creating entertaining moments about it might be a good move. Is this a boring industry? And so making fun of how boring it is and how repetitive things are, and yet how much actually gets accomplished in the industry is an interesting way of doing it through entertainment, right? You can't make a store that sells cardboard boxes for moving interesting, can you? But what is interesting is the kinds of people that are moving and the kinds of stories that those people might have themselves. And that requires a little bit of outreach, right? So I think these are important things to consider when developing your content. For me anyways, one of the things I always try to do whenever I step into a recording or podcast session is I do a little bit of work and ask myself, like, what's the one question that's on everyone's mind in this industry? Because I often speak to a variety of industries. It's not like I only speak to tech people or I only speak to coaches or I only speak to e-commerce professionals. I get the chance to speak to a lot of people. So the question is, what is the most important, relevant question right now about their industry? And what is this person doing about that as a leader, right? And what is their company doing about that as a whole for the macro, the industry, and then the micro themselves and their company? How are they coming face to face with this obstacle or this opportunity, right? That's the story. It's not, hey, look, we're awesome and we just raised a Series A. Who cares? I mean, good for you. Congratulations. But believe me, nobody cares. Nobody cares. They don't care that you got a Series A. They care what you're going to do with the Series A. So you could say, hey, we raised a Series A, but here's what we intend to do with it. Okay? What is that? Well, you know how this industry has been plagued with bureaucracy or what have you. Let's take healthcare, for example. Wouldn't it be one hell of a story if the next thing you knew, they made pricing transparent? This company is making sure to standardize pricing across the entire industry. It would be unheard of. It would literally shake the foundation of healthcare because that's not how it's done. You usually don't know how much something is going to cost until after the procedure, which, as you know, is absolutely absurd. But do you see what I'm saying? That's the story, not the fact that you've raised money. It might have been a mission to raise the money. And if this is a show that specifically talks about raising capital, and literally it's called Raising Benjamins or something, and that's the show. And it's a story about how long it took them to make the pitch deck, things that they left out. You see, it has to be relevant. For the who is it for, what is it for? So if you're just going on some random podcast to promote your company, that's great. That's great. And good for you for getting out there. That's more than most people do. But if you really want to take advantage of it and create impact, know why you're doing it. Be prepared.